The scent of fear has a distinctive quality. Most people can't detect it, but Sophia Carter could. And right now it was emanating from every pore of Dr. Westfield's body as he backed against the laboratory wall, eyes wide with terror. "Please," he whispered, his voice trembling. "We were only following orders." Sophia felt her pupils dilate as she stalked toward him, each movement fluid and deliberate. Her newly heightened senses detected his racing heartbeat, the rush of adrenaline coursing through his veins. The predator inside her, the one they had put there, purred with satisfaction. "Following orders," she repeated, her voice a low growl that no longer sounded entirely human. "Is that what you told yourself when you strapped my Michael to that table?" Blood from earlier confrontations still stained her pale skin, creating crimson patterns across her shoulders. The transformation had left her somewhere between woman and beast, still recognizably Sophia, but with unmistakable feline features merging with her human form. Her orange eyes, vertical pupils contracting in the laboratory's harsh light, fixed on the terrified scientist. "We can help you," Westfield pleaded. "The process isn't irreversible. We can still what?" Sophia cut him off, her lips curling back to reveal teeth that had grown uncomfortably sharp. "Still turn me into one of your obedient little chimeras. Still erase what makes me human until I'm just another weapon in your arsenal?" She leaned in closer, inhaling his scent. "I don't think so." 72 hours earlier. Sophia Carter hurried through the sterile corridors of Helix Dynamics, her lab coat billowing behind her. At 32, she was one of the youngest leading geneticists in the company's prestigious bioevolution division. Today marked the 3-year anniversary of her joining the program, though there would be no celebration. Not when project deadlines loomed and Director Chambers was breathing down everyone's necks. "Dr. Carter," a voice called from behind. "Got a second?" Sophia turned to see Patrick Chen, her research assistant, jogging to catch up with her. His expression betrayed his exhaustion. They'd all been pulling 16-hour shifts for weeks. "Walk with me," she said, not breaking stride. "Chambers called an emergency meeting. Apparently, our friends in the Defense Department are getting impatient." Patrick matched her pace. "It's about the stability issues, isn't it?" "Most likely. The latest test subjects are showing increased aggression and decreased cognitive function. Not exactly what you want in a genetically enhanced soldier." The Chimera project was Helix Dynamics' crown jewel, a classified program aimed at incorporating animal DNA into human subjects to create soldiers with enhanced capabilities. Sophia had joined believing they were developing medical applications, targeted therapies that could give paraplegics the regenerative abilities of starfish or enhance human endurance using cheetah genetics. The reality had proven far darker. "Did you get a chance to look at the latest simulations?" Patrick asked, lowering his voice as they passed a security checkpoint. Sophia nodded almost imperceptibly. "The genetic degradation is accelerating. If they move to human trials now..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The conference room was already filled when they arrived. Director Chambers, a tall, severe woman in her 50s, stood at the head of the table. The wall behind her displayed genetic sequencing data and what appeared to be brain scans. "Dr. Carter, so glad you could join us," Chambers said, her tone making it clear that Sophia's prompt arrival was expected, not appreciated. "I was just bringing everyone up to speed on our accelerated timeline." Sophia took her seat. "Accelerated timeline?" "Director, with all due respect, we're nowhere near ready for..." "Your concerns have been noted, Dr. Carter," Chambers interrupted. "However, the board has approved moving to Phase 3, effective immediately." The room fell silent. Phase 3 meant human trials. "The current subjects are showing severe psychological deterioration," Sophia protested. "The neural pathways aren't holding. We're creating unstable chimeras that maintain physical enhancements, but lose higher cognitive function." Chambers' smile didn't reach her eyes. "That's precisely why we've decided to modify our approach. Our sponsors don't merely want soldiers with enhanced physical capabilities. They want operatives who can infiltrate, who can blend in." She clicked to the next slide, and Sophia felt her blood run cold. On the screen was a simulation of a human-feline hybrid, not the grotesque creatures they'd been engineering in the lab, but something far more sophisticated, something that looked mostly human, with subtle enhancements. "We're calling it Project White Fang," Chambers continued. "Targeted enhancement using primarily white tiger DNA, selected for its rare genetic profile and superior strength-to-weight ratio. The goal is subjects who appear predominantly human, but can access heightened abilities when needed." "And the cognitive stability issues?" Dr. Reynolds, the neurologist, asked. "That's where Dr. Carter's research comes in," Chambers said, turning her gaze to Sophia. "Your work on preserving neural pathways during genetic transformation has shown the most promise. We'll be using your protocols as the foundation." Sophia's mind raced. Her research wasn't ready. The simulations showed promise, but they were months, maybe years away from solving the fundamental problem. The animal instincts eventually overwhelmed human consciousness. "We need results, Dr. Carter," Chambers said, as if reading her thoughts. "Our first human subject has already been selected." As she brought up the next slide, Sophia felt the room tilt. On the screen was a personnel file. Michael Reed, software engineer, age 34. Michael, her Michael. The boyfriend who had mysteriously accepted a new job opportunity 3 weeks ago and hadn't been in contact since. "Where is he?" Sophia asked, her voice barely audible. Chambers raised an eyebrow. "I'm sorry?" "Michael Reed," Sophia said, rising slowly from her chair. "Where is he being held?" A flicker of surprise crossed Chambers' face before her professional mask returned. "I wasn't aware you knew Mr. Reed personally, Dr. Carter. This is precisely why we maintain the strict compartmentalization." "He's not Mr. Reed, he's my boyfriend," Sophia said, hands trembling as rage built inside her. "And you've had him for 3 weeks." The room had gone deathly quiet. "Your personal relationship with the subject is unfortunate," Chambers finally said, "but it doesn't change our timeline. If anything, it should motivate you to ensure the procedure's success." Her smile turned cruel. "After all, don't you want to see him again?" They'd confined Sophia to her lab after that, with 2 armed guards outside the door. For her protection, Chambers had claimed. But the message was clear: produce results or Michael suffers the consequences. For 3 days straight, she worked without sleep, reviewing every piece of data from the failed trials, searching desperately for the solution that would allow a human consciousness to coexist with animal DNA without being overwhelmed by primitive instincts. On the 4th day, as she stared blearily at her computer screen, Patrick slipped into the lab during a guard rotation. "You look like hell," he said, placing a cup of real coffee, not the vending machine swill, on her desk. "Thanks for the status update," she muttered, grabbing the cup. The caffeine hit her system like a drug. "Have you seen him? Do you know where they are keeping Michael?" Patrick glanced nervously at the door. "Sub-level 5, high security containment. They're prepping him for the procedure, running final tests." "When?" "Tomorrow morning, 0600 hours. Sophia closed her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. "I'm close, Patrick. My simulations show that if we introduce the genetic material more gradually and include emotional anchoring, the human consciousness can remain dominant." Emotional anchoring? Strong emotional connections that keep the human mind tethered during the transformation? Love, hate, purpose, primal human emotions that can counterbalance primal animal instincts. She rubbed her temples. But Chambers won't listen. She wants to use the accelerated protocol, and it will destroy him. He'll be physically enhanced but mentally gone. Patrick was quiet for a moment. "What if you had direct access? Could you modify the procedure?" Sophia looked up sharply. "What are you suggesting?" "I can get you access to the preparation lab tonight. 1-hour window while they change shifts." His voice was barely above a whisper. "But Sophia, if you're caught..." She was already nodding. "I won't be. And if I am, it doesn't matter. I won't let them turn Michael into one of those things." Tridine. Patrick slipped her his security badge. 11 p.m. I'll create a distraction in the East Wing." After he left, Sophia turned back to her computer, determination hardening her resolve. But as she reviewed her research one final time, A new thought began to form, a dangerous, desperate idea. She opened a new simulation, typing furiously as the parameters came together in her mind. What if the solution wasn't just modifying Michael's procedure? What if it was something far more radical? The simulation ran, and for the first time in days, Sophia smiled. At exactly 11 p.m., alarms blared across the east wing of the facility. As security personnel rushed to respond to what appeared to be a containment breach in one of the laboratories, Sophia slipped through the service corridors towards sub-level 5. Patrick's badge got her through the first 2 checkpoints. For the final door, she used the emergency override code she'd memorized months ago, a precaution she'd taken when she'd first suspected Helix's true intentions. The preparation lab was dimly lit and sterile. In the center stood a medical table surrounded by equipment. Michael lay there, unconscious, with IVs running into his arms and monitoring equipment tracking his vitals. "Michael," she whispered, rushing to his side. Up close, she could see they'd already begun the preliminary treatments. His skin was pale, and when she checked his pupils, they had begun to change shape. Just slightly, but enough to confirm her fears. There was no time to get him out. Security would discover the distraction soon, and even if she could wake him, he was in no condition to escape. She had to move forward with her desperate plan. From her lab coat, she removed a syringe filled with pale blue liquid, her modified serum, the one she'd created not for Michael, but for herself. Her theory was simple and terrifying. If she could transform first, using her own emotional anchoring techniques, she might gain the strength needed to free Michael before his procedure was complete. Her anchor would be her love for him and her rage against what Helix had done. The risk was enormous. If she was wrong, they would both be lost. With a steadying breath, Sophia injected the serum into her arm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then came the burning, a scorching sensation that started at the injection site and spread rapidly through her veins. She bit down on her lab coat sleeve to keep from screaming as her body began to change. Her vision blurred, then sharpened dramatically as her pupils transformed. Her hearing suddenly picked up sounds from throughout the facility. Heartbeats, footsteps, the hum of machinery. The pain intensified as her DNA rewrote itself, incorporating the carefully selected tiger genes. But unlike their failed test subjects, Sophia remained conscious, clinging desperately to her emotional anchor, Michael, and their future together. When the first wave of transformation subsided, she looked down at her hands. They appeared mostly normal, but her nails had hardened and extended slightly. When she caught her reflection in a metal cabinet, she saw her eyes had changed color. Now a brilliant orange gold with vertical pupils. Her teeth had sharpened, and subtle striped markings had begun to appear on her skin. But most importantly, she was still herself. Her mind was clear, clearer than before even, with a new predatory focus that made everything around her seem more vivid. An alarm on one of Michael's monitors began to beep. His heart rate was increasing. They were beginning to wake him for the procedure. Sophia's enhanced hearing picked up footsteps in the corridor. Someone was coming. Her first kill was neither planned nor conscious. When Dr. Westfield walked into the lab and saw her standing over Michael, he reached for the alarm. Sophia moved with a speed she didn't know she possessed, closing the distance between them in an instant. Her hand caught his before it reached the button, crushing his wrist with newfound strength. The horror in his eyes as he recognized her triggered something primal. Before she could process what was happening, her sharpened nails had torn across his throat. Blood sprayed across her white lab coat, the coppery scent triggering a rush of predatory satisfaction that terrified the part of her that was still human. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she truly was. The commotion had disturbed Michael. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then widening with confusion as they fell on Sophia. "Soph?" he murmured, voice groggy from sedation. "What happened to your eyes?" "No time to explain," she said, working quickly to disconnect him from the machines. "We need to go." "You're different," he slurred, reaching up to touch her face. "Did they do this to you?" "I did this to myself," she replied, helping him sit up. "To save you." As the sedatives began to wear off, Michael became more alert. his eyes taking in the body on the floor, the blood on Sophia's clothes, and the subtle but unmistakable changes to her appearance. "They were going to use you as a test subject," she explained as she helped him to his feet. "I couldn't let that happen." "So you became one instead," he said, understanding dawning in his eyes. She nodded. "My research showed it was possible to maintain human consciousness through the transformation if there was a strong enough emotional anchor. You were mine." A siren began to wail throughout the facility. Their escape window was closing. "Can you walk?" she asked. Michael nodded, though he was unsteady on his feet. "I think so." "Then we need to move." The next hours passed in a blur of violence and flight. Sophia's enhanced senses and strength made her a formidable opponent against the security teams that tried to stop them. She tried to avoid killing when possible, but the predator within her was becoming harder to control with each confrontation. Michael watched with a mixture of awe and horror as the woman he loved fought their way out of the facility, her movements becoming increasingly feline, her attacks more vicious. Several times he had to call her name to bring her back from the edge when she seemed lost in the frenzy of combat. They escaped into the surrounding forest, the wilderness providing better cover for Sophia's heightened senses than the open road would have. As dawn broke, they found temporary shelter in an abandoned ranger station deep in the woods. "Your transformation is accelerating," Michael said as he examined a wound on her arm that was already healing at an impossible rate. "How long do we have before—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "Before I lose myself?" Sophia asked, meeting his gaze with her tiger eyes. "I don't know. The emotional anchoring is working for now, but I can feel the animal instincts getting stronger." Michael sat beside her, taking her changed hands in his. "Then we fight it, together." For the first time since her transformation, Sophia felt tears well up. "Michael, I'm pregnant." His face registered shock, then softened into a smile that broke her heart. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. I was waiting for the right moment to tell you, and then you disappeared." She placed a hand on her stomach. "I don't know what the serum will do to the baby. My DNA is changing. What if—" Michael placed his hand over hers. "One problem at a time. First, we need to get somewhere safe. Then we figure out how to stabilize your condition." "Where can we go?" "Helix has government connections. They'll never stop hunting us now that they know the transformation can work." "I have an idea," Michael said, his software engineer's mind already working on the problem. "But you're not going to like it." Dr. Reynolds nearly had a heart attack when he opened his front door at 3 a.m. to find Sophia Carter on his doorstep, her appearance now unmistakably altered, with Michael Reed standing beside her. "Jesus Christ," he breathed, instinctively stepping back. "We need your help, James," Sophia said, her voice carrying a new resonance that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "You're the only one who understands the neural component of the transformations." Reynolds glanced nervously up and down the street before ushering them inside. "They've got search teams everywhere. The official story is that you suffered a psychotic break and killed 3 security guards during an escape." "It wasn't a psychotic break," Sophia said as she moved with predatory grace into his living room. "It was a calculated risk." She explained her theory about emotional anchoring and how she'd modified the serum to allow her consciousness to remain intact during the transformation. "But it's not permanent," she finished. "I can feel myself slipping. The predator gets stronger every hour." Reynolds studied her with scientific fascination overtaking his fear. "The fact that you've maintained cognitive function this long is remarkable. None of our test subjects managed more than a few hours before the animal instincts took over." "Sophia isn't one of your test subjects," Michael interjected sharply. "She's a woman fighting to stay human. Can you help her or not?" Reynolds hesitated. "Maybe, but I'll need equipment, and going back to Helix is suicide." "What about your home lab?" Sophia asked, gesturing to the door that she knew led to Reynolds' basement laboratory. Her enhanced sense of smell had already detected the familiar chemicals. "It's not equipped for something like this," Reynolds protested. "It will have to do," Michael said firmly. "What other choice do we have?" In Reynolds' basement lab, they worked frantically to create a stabilizing agent that would halt the progression of Sophia's transformation. Michael, despite not being a geneticist, proved invaluable, his software experience allowing him to run complex simulations on Reynolds' computers, while the doctor extracted blood samples from Sophia to analyze how the tiger DNA was integrating with her human genome. The emotional anchoring is ingenious, Reynolds admitted as he studied the results. Your love for Michael, your fear for your unborn child. These emotions activate parts of the brain that the animal instincts can't override completely, but it's not a permanent solution. Then what is? Michael demanded. Reynolds looked grim. I'm not sure there is one. The tiger DNA is aggressive, designed to dominate. Eventually, it will overwrite enough of her human genetic code that the balance will tip. Sophia, who had been silent, suddenly stiffened. Her nostrils flared and she turned toward the stairs. Someone's coming, she whispered, her pupils contracting to slits. Reynolds went pale. I didn't contact anyone, I swear. Michael moved to the basement window, peering cautiously outside. Black SUVs, at least 3. Helix, Sophia growled, the sound no longer entirely human. The predator inside her was responding to the threat, pushing forward as adrenaline flooded her system. There's a back exit, Reynolds said, moving quickly to a shelf and pulling it aside to reveal a hidden door. Through the storm drain, I installed it when I first started doing off-books research for Helix. I never trusted chambers. The sound of the front door being broken down echoed from upstairs. Go, Reynolds urged. Take this. He handed Michael a flash drive. It's everything I've learned about the transformation process, including the data from tonight. Maybe you can find someone else to help. What about you? Michael asked. Reynolds gave a grim smile. I'll buy you some time. As they slipped through the hidden exit, Sophia heard gunshots from above. Reynolds wouldn't be buying them much time after all. For 3 days, they evaded Helix's search teams, moving through the wilderness where Sophia's enhanced senses gave them an advantage. But each day, she found it harder to maintain her humanity. The predator within was becoming dominant, responding to threats with increasing violence, retreating only when Michael managed to reach through to the woman he loved. On the 4th day, as they hid in an abandoned cabin deep in the national forest, Michael made a breakthrough with Reynolds' data. The transformation isn't just physical, he explained as Sophia paced restlessly, her movements now distinctly feline. It's altering your brain chemistry, but not in the way Helix thought. The predator instincts aren't overriding your human consciousness. They're merging with it. Sophia stopped pacing, her orange eyes fixing on him with intense focus. What does that mean? It means you don't have to fight the tiger to remain human. You have to accept it as part of you. She laughed bitterly, gesturing to her appearance, which had continued to shift subtly toward her feline counterpart. Accept this? Becoming a monster? Not a monster, Michael said gently. Something new. Something that's neither fully human nor tiger, but a true chimera. A balance of both. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. And what about our child? Will it be a monster too? Our child will be unique, Michael said, placing a hand on her still flat stomach. Like its mother. Something in Sophia calmed at his touch. For the first time since her transformation, she felt the predator within settle, not fighting against her humanity, but aligning with it. There's something else, Michael continued, his expression turning serious. According to Reynolds' data, once the transformation reaches a certain point, it starts producing specialized antibodies. Those antibodies could potentially neutralize the serum in someone who hasn't fully transformed. Understanding dawned in Sophia's eyes. Michael, no. We don't know what would happen if we introduced your blood into my system, he finished. No, we don't. But Helix does. That's why they're hunting us so desperately. Your successful transformation is the key they've been looking for. Before she could respond, her enhanced hearing picked up the sound of helicopter rotors in the distance. They've found us, she said, the predator instantly alert. Michael quickly gathered Reynolds' flash drive and their few supplies. There's an old mining system not far from here. If we can reach it. The cabin window exploded inward as a tear gas canister crashed through. Within seconds, the small space was filling with acrid smoke. Sophia grabbed Michael and crashed through the back wall, her enhanced strength splintering the old wood like paper. They ran into the forest, pursued by shouts and gunfire. Despite her superior speed and strength, Sophia knew they couldn't outrun a helicopter. As they reached the edge of a steep ravine, she made a split-second decision. "The mine entrance is half a mile downstream," she told Michael, pressing Reynolds' flash drive into his hand. "Get there. I'll lead them away and find you." "Sophia, no. I'm faster alone," she insisted, "and they want me more than they want you." Before he could protest further, she kissed him fiercely, then turned and raced back toward their pursuers, letting out a roar that was entirely tigress. The predator was fully awakened now, but for the first time, Sophia didn't fight it. Instead, she embraced it, directing its deadly focus toward those who threatened her mate and unborn cub. The Helix security team wasn't prepared for a frontal assault from a fully transformed chimera. Sophia tore through their ranks with savage efficiency, her human intelligence working in perfect concert with her tiger strength and reflexes. But they were many, and eventually a tranquilizer dart found its mark. As consciousness began to fade, Sophia felt the predator receding, satisfied that it had bought Michael enough time to escape. Her last thought before darkness claimed her was a silent promise to her unborn child. "I will find you both again." Sophia awoke in a holding cell back at Helix. Through the reinforced glass wall, she could see Director Chambers watching her with undisguised fascination. "Remarkable," Chambers said, her voice coming through a speaker. "You've exceeded all our expectations, Dr. Carter. The most successful chimera transformation in our program's history." Sophia sat up slowly, taking stock of her changed body. The transformation had progressed during her unconsciousness. Her skin now showed more pronounced striping, her hands more claw-like. Yet her mind remained clear, clearer than ever before. "Where is Michael?" she demanded. Chambers smiled thinly. "Mr. Reed managed to evade capture, for now. But don't worry, we'll find him." "You should worry about what I'll do to you when I get out of this cell," Sophia replied, her voice a low growl. "Such aggression," Chambers noted clinically. "Yet you maintain complete cognitive awareness. Your emotional anchoring theory was correct. Tell me, is it just your connection to Mr. Reed, or does your pregnancy also play a role?" Sophia went still. "How did you—" "Your blood work, of course," Chambers said dismissively. "A fascinating variable we hadn't considered. A chimera carrying a child." Her eyes gleamed with scientific avarice. "The research possibilities are endless." In that moment, something shifted within Sophia. The line between woman and tiger, which she had been fighting to maintain, suddenly seemed arbitrary. She wasn't two beings at war within one body. She was one being, new, evolved, and now fully awakened. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," she said quietly. Chambers laughed. "Kill our most successful subject? Hardly. No, Dr. Carter, you're far too valuable. Once we understand how you maintain cognitive function through the transformation, we can replicate it, create an army of controllable chimeras." "They'll never be controllable," Sophia said, rising to her feet with fluid grace. "And neither am I." With a sudden burst of strength that surprised even her, Sophia slammed against the cell's glass wall. A spiderweb of cracks appeared. Chambers stepped back, alarm replacing her scientific detachment. "Security!" Sophia struck again, and the cracks deepened. "The problem with your research, Director, is that you never understood the true nature of the transformation. Or it's not about suppressing the animal instincts in favor of human cognition." Another strike, and the glass began to give way. "It's about becoming something greater than both." "Ah, shit!" With a final powerful blow, the reinforced glass shattered, and Sophia stepped through the opening, glass crunching beneath her bare feet. Alarms blared throughout the facility as security personnel rushed toward the containment area. But they were too late. By the time they arrived, Director Chambers lay unconscious on the floor, and Sophia Carter, or the chimera she had become, was gone, leaving a trail of subdued guards in her wake. In the deep recesses of the abandoned mine, Michael waited anxiously. It had been 3 days since he'd separated from Sophia, and each hour without her felt like torture. He'd used the time to study Reynolds' data further, piecing together the true nature of the Chimera project and the unexpected miracle of Sophia's transformation. A sound at the mine entrance sent him scrambling for the makeshift weapon he'd fashioned. But the figure that appeared in the dim light wasn't a Helix security guard. It was Sophia. She moved toward him with predatory grace, her transformation now far more advanced than when he'd last seen her. In the shadows, her eyes glowed with reflected light, and the stripes on her skin were clearly visible. Yet when she spoke, her voice was still unmistakably hers. "It's over," she said. "Chambers is dead. The facility is in chaos." Michael approached cautiously, relief warring with concern. "Sophia, are you still me?" She smiled, revealing sharpened canines. "Yes and no. I'm more than I was before. And less, but I'm still yours if you'll have me." He took her changed hands in his, studying her transformed features. Where he had expected to feel fear, he found only wonder. "Always." "There's something else," she said, producing a small case she'd taken from the lab. "The stabilizing compound Reynolds was working on. It won't reverse my transformation, but it might prevent further changes." "And the baby?" Michael asked, his hand moving to her stomach. Sophia's expression softened. "Our child carries both our DNA, plus the changes to mine. What that means is that our child will be the first of something new," Michael finished. "Not a monster, not a weapon. Just evolved." Sophia nodded, leaning into his embrace. "Helix will keep hunting us, and there will be others who want what I've become. Then we stay ahead of them," Michael said firmly, "and we find others who can help us understand what this means. For you, for our child, for humanity." As they stood together in the darkness of the mine, Sophia felt the predator within her stir. Not with bloodlust, but with the fierce protectiveness of a mother tiger. She had fought to remain human throughout her transformation, only to discover that humanity itself was more fluid, more adaptable than she had ever imagined. She wasn't just Sophia anymore, nor was she merely a tiger in human form. She was the next step, the bridge between what humanity had been and what it might become. And in her womb grew the future, a child who would never know the artificial divisions between human and animal, instinct and intellect, predator and protector. "Whatever comes next," she whispered, "we face it together." Michael's arms tightened around her. Together. In the distance, sirens wailed as Helix's recovery teams scoured the wilderness. But they would find nothing. The predator had learned to hide, to wait, to plan. And when the time came to strike again, it would not be for vengeance, but for the future of a new kind of family. One born not of the laboratory, but of love. The end.